What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Verses and Vibes with Thinker in 69 God. No. Welcome back to Verses and Vibes with Thinker and Bash. That is a trip. We are talking about Bash's um, his favorite chapter today in the story, the story of Tamar.
Yeah,
Why is this
yeah.
your favorite chapter, Bash?
One, because I feel like there's a. I'm trying to say how to explain this, but you know how like there is like this thing about like sexuality in religion in general, specifically Christian religion, and how it's supposed to work. But if you pay attention to the details of this story, what our normal Christian sexuality is confronted several times in several different serious ways here.
Yeah.
Um, and this is the woman. Tamar is the woman for whom, like, this is one of Jesus' grandmamas, right?
It's his one of his grandmamas or like great grandmama?
Well,
Which
yeah,
one?
great. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like one of his foremothers is what I'm saying. Yeah, like this is one of Jesus' foremothers. You know what I'm saying? Like one of he is a descendant of this woman specifically, right? And
Hmm.
further, there are only like three women really named in his. No, four women named in his story. No, three. Tamar is named in the lineage. I think it's over in Matthew. One Matthew.
Hmm.
Tamar is named. Uh, uh, Rahab is named. Ruth is named, and then Mary is named. And the weird thing about three of those women is, well, Tamar plays a harlot in this particular story. Rahab was a harlot. Um, Ruth, I mean, yeah, Ruth was basically a homosexual. She was sleeping with somebody for a place to stay. And then you run into this quote unquote virgin in the New Testament, right? And it just the juxtaposition of that I think is just quite telling, right? Like
Yeah.
just how sexuality, how that how that changed over time. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I just think it's really
It played
interesting.
a huge role in what they all say the divine plan is, right?
Yes.
And what they consider what their God considers immoral now, right, was seen
Yes.
as more it was morally justified, or it was justified. I
Yes.
wouldn't even say morally justified. If it's immoral to the God now, that means that the God justified immoral behavior in order to implement his divine plan.
Right. And taking it out of a God kind, like, I mean that's in a God way, but in like just a secular look at the society kind of way, right?
Hmm.
You see people just kind of speaking their ideas, skip if God ordained. I mean, we can talk about what God ordained, but just separate from that, like the way that the people saw sexuality at that time versus the way they would come to see it in the Greco-Roman times,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like just a vast difference, and whether God agreed with it or not. I mean, keep in mind, you know.
But I think that has some theological um, importance to it, right? Because Judah is seen as being immoral until he like later on, like he apologizes and then like we'll get into it, like
Hmm.
that's why I said I don't know if we'll get to Potiphar's house today because they're like studying this chapter.
It's a
It
lot.
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. What's up, TT? What's up, Selena? What's up, Fee? Thank y'all for being here. I did post in the Discord to let everybody know that we were live, but I know Mezzo and Joel are also live at their atheist Sunday school,
Yeah.
so everybody might be in there. Um, but yeah, you ready to get into it?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, how you want to do this? Do you want to stop as we go, or
Yeah, probably so,
okay?
because it's gonna be a lot to try to digest at once.
All right. So now, mind y'all, this is after Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers, or the Midianites came and got him. I don't know.
Somebody.
Yeah, somebody came and got him. So this is after that has happened. And it says it happened at the time that Judah went down from his brothers and settled near a certain Adulamite whose name was Hirah. There, Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He married her and went into her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him or Er. Again, she conceived and bore a son, whom she named Onan. Yet again, she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. She was in Chezbib when she bore him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Oh
For,
my God.
Forrest Burn is crazy.
It's the names.
Firstborn.
Shona, I can't say
Firstborn is crazy.
it. Judah took a wife for his firstborn.
Right.
Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother in law to her. Rise up, offspring for your brother. But since Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, he spilled his semen on the ground whenever he went into his brother's wife, so that he would not give offspring to his brother. What he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Can I just say that this is the scripture that is usually used to say that it is wrong to
Masturbate.
masturbate?
Yes, yes.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with
Not
that,
about
right?
masturbation, y'all. No.
Yeah, it's about Levite marriage laws that we later see in Deuteronomy 25,
Yes, and
right?
I forget what this kind of marriage is. It has a name.
Isn't it
Um,
Levirate?
no, no, but it's
Oh,
like it does a certain kind of. I can't. I forget what it's called, but I mean, it's a marriage thing of law, but it's called something.
oh, okay.
But yeah, well, you're supposed like if your brother dies, she's supposed to marry the next oldest brother. That's called something. I just can't remember what it is. But also notice that like the was just plain out wicked. God just killed him. We don't really know what he did that was wicked. He just happened to be wicked, and so God put him to death.
Mm-hmm.
And then this second thing was displeasing to God because he pulled out, right? And so you're learning a lot about the sexuality off top, right? Pretty much all that's happened in this story so far is 5 sex acts.
Yeah, that's true.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Shua had 3 boys, and so it said she conceived. Went into it, she conceived, she conceived, she conceived. So that's 3 sex acts. And the next thing you know, sex act number 4 is and he dies. And then here comes who is this? What's this boy name? Onan, right?
Onan.
Right. And he pulls out and he dies. Which I know you've heard the term killer. If anybody got killer, it's her, right? Because
She killing
she
them.
is taking them out the game. You talk about sucking somebody's soul out. This is her. Their souls is literally leaving their body.
Oh my God.
Literally leaving their bodies. Okay, so y'all just putting that out there.
Oh my God. Okay, so I also right quick, let's go to I think it's Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 10. So since we're like reading a little bit at a time, I want to talk a little bit about the Levirate law that's there. Because so I looked to see if there was any mention, right,
Mhm.
of this law prior to it being in Deuteronomy, and there's not.
Okay.
So Genesis 38 is, and the story of Tamar is the first time that you hear like the God required this, right? And so it's later. So like, I guess one could say, oh, they were practicing this type of thing because it is an ancient Near East practice, right? Um, but it wasn't like in the law, if that makes sense. And so the first time that we
Right.
see this Levirate marriage requirement is in Deuteronomy, like during the time of King Josiah,
Right.
right?
So this is like so that means that this is a Deuteronomic thing, like a kind of a revamping of how you do law, right? So
Hmm.
this is doing the reform, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Which basically means that someone's redacting this back into the story.
exactly.
Right.
Because even when the laws were given from Moses, Levirate marriage wasn't even a part of it in Exodus or Leviticus,
Right.
right? And so I'm going to read this right quick. for the audience so that we know they know where we're coming from, because I have some questions here. So when brothers reside together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married outside of the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in to her, taking her in marriage and performing the duty of a husband's brother to her. And the firstborn whom she bears shall succeed to the name of the deceased brother, so that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. But if the man has no desire to marry his brother's widow, then his brother's widow shall go up to the elders at the gate and say, my husband's brother refuses to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then the elders of his town shall summon him and speak to him. If he persists, saying, I have no desire to marry her, then his brother's wife shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, pull his sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and declare, this is what is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. Throughout all Israel, his family shall be known as the house of him whose sandal was pulled off. Now, we know that. So, here are a couple of things. Here, this is to, like we said, to add this legal right law into the law, because it was mostly about lineage and land, not about
Mm-hmm.
masturbation,
Mm-hmm.
not about seed being the thing that, like, it's so, the semen is so
Important.
important that
Right.
it can't be spilled on the ground. That's
Right.
not the theological message in the story. That wasn't the whole point,
Right.
right? And then the punishment here, the punishment is, I don't know if it's a euphemism. Like, I know that feet and sandals is euphemistic
Euphemism like for genitals.
for gender. Yeah. And
Sometimes, yeah.
so, yeah, and then what, and I was researching this, and it was saying that it was also euphemism for impotence.
Mm,
Um and like to shame the man sexually, right?
mm.
And so her pulling his foot off his sandal
Somebody.
is, it's, yeah, it's kind of like her shaming his genitalia area, saying
Mm-hmm.
that he has crushed balls and stuff like that, and then spitting in his face.
You little
And
dick bitch.
yeah, like
Welcome to Bible study, guys.
so she done cussed him out. She called him an impotent ass, little dick, crushed dick, and then spits in his face. That's the punishment. And then all of Israel knows, right, that he
Yeah.
is an impotent little dick man that didn't want to, carry on his brother's legacy. And
Right.
that's it. There's no death requirement.
Right.
But when we go back to Genesis 38, and we'll keep reading from there. Um, where do we stop at?
Onan died.
Oh, he already died.
Yeah, you're right. He spilled his seed on the ground, and so God killed him. Right.
Okay. Yeah. And so that is a harsher punishment before there is even a law, right?
Right.
Did Onan know that this God was going to kill him for not impregnating his wife?
I mean, I don't think he would have known. Right. Like I don't think again there was no law concerning that at the time. But if you're reading this as if look, I can't say words. If this were a narrative that were real, right? Like if this really existed and there was really some guy named Onan who really did this, then in the
No,
story
I
he
no,
would have
I
known.
know. I'm talking about like within the internal critique, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
it
don't
just
think he would have
seems,
known.
it seems like a harsher penalty for Onan than when the law is later codified, right?
Yeah,
It's, you're just called an impotent, crushed dick man, and then you get spit in your face.
but I think that's to kind of set the tone for the law, right? To say like this is a really big problem, and because of that, we're gonna make it a law, right? Like,
Mhm.
because God could kill you because it's that wicked, but we're gonna make it a law. You get what I'm saying? And it's a little softened on the blow in the actual law, but you put out this like huge um, what are you saying? What am I saying? Like a huge precedent, right? And you, so the precedent is, you remember what happened to Onan, and so you deserve this or whatever, right? So whatever we do to you, you deserve it because at least you're alive, you know. So sometimes you'll find that, especially when you look into these redactions, it's a couple laws like that. I'm trying to think. It was one I was just thinking about. Goodness, oh my God, um, oh my goodness, somebody else died, and it was like, wait, oh, picking up sticks on Sabbath. Right. So, like, you know, the story about who is that picked up the man that was outside the camp, and he was picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and they brought him to Moses, and Moses was like, that man should be put to death, and so they stoned him with stones. But please believe, other people picked up sticks on the Sabbath. Nobody else got killed. But the story is to kind of put it in your mind that it's that big of a deal. Like even
Mhm.
down to the sticks you pick up on the Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
These are people just trying to lay into what they call gate laws normally, right? So you have something about like work on the Sabbath. Do no servile work. That'll be the law. Do no servile work. Well, people will go, well, what's considered servile work, right? And so somebody will go all the way down to uh, all the way down to picking up a little stick on the Sabbath. Well, that's not how anybody really used that law, but you do it that way to emphasize the importance of the law. It's another one like that too. Oh my God, I just had it in my head. Oh my goodness, it slipped my head just that quick. But I'm just that to say these kinds of things happen a lot. You'll make this like huge, super like, oh, Onan died and oh they killed a man with the sticks, you know, and it's like, oh, or like night emissions, because night emissions you would just be unclean even though your seed spilled, right?
Hmm.
Just unclean to the evening, right?
Yeah.
So if it was just that the seed spilled, you should have died then too,
Exactly.
right?
And I think like when we talk to believers all the time and they say we're not bound by the Old Testament, but they will swear up and down that you're not supposed to masturbate.
Because of this,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Like because there's nothing in the New Testament that even addresses masturbation, right?
Not that I know.
Yeah. And then when it talks about sexual immorality, it's still going by the laws in the in the Old Testament, but there's no masturbation listed in there either in the sexual immorality laws.
Nope.
So that this is what I be trying to tell believers that a lot of what they believe to be a sin is was created or made a sin
Mm-hmm.
by men,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that they're trying to live, you know, their lives by what some other person, you know, constitutes to be either moral or immoral or sinful and or not sinful. And why we see a lot of the bullshit that we see today,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's the same thing that was happening even with that law we just read in Deuteronomy, right? Like, keep in mind, Onan did not know this to be a sin, right? That it couldn't have been a sin because there was no
Right.
law, right? But so what you do is you set up this situation where your dad told you not to do this, right? But why would you, anyway? So you set up this situation where it's like, okay, now you're in the wrong for not wanting to marry a girl. Like, what? How is that even? What? Okay. But now you're in the wrong for not having a kid by her too. Not just not marrying her, but not having a kid by her, not marrying her. Right. And so you emphasize that importance. So you make a sin out of it. You
Mhm.
you know, when if you had to it's kind of like I went to there is a church in Tennessee, as a matter of fact, where the dude preached against men having beards.
Because of the Old Testament law. No,
No.
no, no, no. The Old
They,
Testament law said they're supposed to have
you're
beards.
supposed to have a beard. Right? But
Mhm.
some kind of way it had become a part of that doctrine, and I forget where he gets it from. But it was something that they switched. I don't know. I can't even remember how they got to it. But that men were not supposed to have beards, and if you had a beard and you came into his church, he would put you out. Right? So all of a sudden, having facial hair had become a sin.
Wow.
How? Well, probably because of some scripture that he read that he just da 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 da, and then it became really important to him, and this is the way that we do it, and so now God will get you. And that's how sins evolve. That's how they happen. Because
Mhm.
ultimately, this is all the word of some human being saying, "I don't think this is right," or "This is how we do it over here. This is our custom." Blah 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 blah. And Paul had to talk about that when they were talking about men with long hair. I think that's over in one of the Corinthians one. And he says, y'all got this custom of, having women keep their head covered. And, but the glory of the man is this. Da, 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 da. So he's just kind of going through how he sees hair. Right. And then eventually, there's still churches that you go to where like women have to keep tabs on their head,
Yeah.
right? Because it was a sin to, whatever.
Yeah, that's wow. But that's pretty interesting to me. Like just studying the text this way and being able to kind of see the evolution of a certain idea and then see how it's even playing out in our time.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's
Hmm.
pretty interesting.
Oh,
And
one more
so
thing about that. Did you know that as of right now in America, we are all technically non-binary people? Did you know that?
mm-mm.
Yes, it is now U.S. policy that at conception, whatever sex cells you produce at conception is what your sexual.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Right. So at conception, you develop your X before your Y.
Yeah.
Right. Your Y is you kind of become a boy over time. Right. So we're at least all non-binary now. And I say that because this is how people's ideas grow. Like when you don't use facts and when it's not something that's objectively true, you're just kind of like, well, this is how I see it, right?
Mhm.
And a boy is a boy, and a girl is a girl, right? And so intersex people don't like. What do you do for intersex? It doesn't matter, right? It's not about it being objectively right, and so it becomes you make a bigger mess trying to clean it up, right? And I
Yeah,
think the
they're
same thing's
fucking
happening.
up. They're fucking up progress. And like it also reminds me of this book where Judah, like they were really conservative and they fucking hated progress. They
Mm-hmm.
demonized progress.
Mm-hmm.
And like the North were progressive, right? And so they
Yep.
were seen as the ones that this God hated. He hated big cities. He hated
Mm-hmm.
agriculture. Don't do this. Don't mix two seas together. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so like everything that we see happening in the world today just reminds me of Jesus's family.
Yep, it's a lot like that. Right. And it's super like keep things simple. Do it the way we used to always do it. Um,
Don't
and that,
change. Stay the
yeah,
same.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's why Jesus, if Jesus was real, they'd still be stoning kids for disobeying their parents or like for
Hmm.
dishonoring their parents. Like, and it trips me out how hard it is to get believers to see that even though the Pharisees did, some manipulating the text, they reinterpret stuff,
Hmm.
but they with in order to keep their text alive, they would go with the times, right? As they
Hmm.
moved away from wanting to stone people,
Hmm.
they created new traditions. And Jesus is like, demon, you
Hmm.
demon. And
Get
it
back to that.
reminds me of Trump and Vance
Hmm.
and all the Fox News people, not even trying to get into politics, but what they're saying to the bishop. Like, she's
Hmm.
like, please have
Have mercy.
mercy on those on the marginalized,
Yeah.
right? They're scared, right? This is the will of God, like mercy and love. And they're saying demon,
Hmm.
demonic,
Hmm.
right? She
Hmm.
needs to apologize. And that's exactly what Jesus gives off when he's telling the Pharisees, like, how dare you create your own tradition and not stone these kids?
Hmm.
Moses said they're supposed to die the death, you demon.
Hmm.
And it's like,
Hmm.
I don't want to kill anymore.
And yeah, well, that's just that seems brutal. Yeah, that can't be what God was saying, right? And that's therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem, and that's how these texts kind of get redacted over time. So you kind of get into these arguments about what is acceptable. I talk all the time about Exodus 34, where God was not going to forgive nobody, and then God will forgive a lot of people, right? And it's kind of this idea of, okay, where are we as a culture? How do we handle justice and mercy, right? How do we handle sexuality? How do we deal with family structure, right? And those things change over time because you're not as nomadic. You're trying to build a civilization. You're trying to figure out, well, how do we govern people? And a lot of times the way you used to govern people just doesn't work anymore. Right,
Mhm.
it doesn't work anymore because of technology, or it doesn't work anymore because of economic issues. It doesn't work anymore because of education. Lots of climate. I mean, like lots of different things could change the way you should govern. Right. Um, you find out more about things. Like we have different child labor laws now than we used to. Right. Well, not because we're necessarily more moral now, but we found out you just can't work kids like that, right? Like that's just not
But
going to
they're
be.
trying to roll them back. Like
Yep,
literally, they rolled back the age limit for working third shift. Like
yep.
literally, ninth graders can work third shift and then go to school right after they work third shift. In some states in the South, and then they've rolled back the age of consent.
You see what I'm saying? Right, and we that progress happens over time, because we learn from bad experiences, right? And people push to have things change because, hey, I need to protect this group, or I need to protect that. I need to not stone kids. I need to allow people to have night emissions. We ain't much we can do about that. I can't force people to sleep with their sister-in-law, right? Things like that. So you start to change things because you live, you learn, you grow. But then there's this kind of push to kind of get you back into that because a certain group of people might have been empowered, had more leverage
Hmm.
at the time. Things.
Yeah, like this whole story to me, the Bible, and I don't want to. I'm gonna hurry up and say this because I'm not trying to take us off tech. But like um the struggle for a specific group of people to gain power in the world where otherwise they felt like they were small, unimportant, overlooked.
Yeah.
Right? They were willing to do immoral things. Right? To
Mm-hmm,
get that power, they were jealous of the other nations that were around them that
mm-hmm,
had the power, right?
mm-hmm,
And then when they got some influence, um, it like the whole story. It's just about trying to get it back. Like when they got the influence, they lost it. They end up going to Babylon. They come back into the Levant area, and it's like, how do we get this influence back,
right.
right? And then you just see later on it's just turned into something else when it's married to the New Testament, when it's married to the I don't want to say Roman text, but when it's married to the New Testament, it turns into something completely different.
Mm-hmm,
But like just looking at the Hebrew scriptures, to me, I just see two nations fighting, right? For status and power and wealth and
mm-hmm.
land, and and one was smaller than the other, and they were jealous. They were
Yes,
jealous of the other,
absolutely.
and what we see in the world today, there is a fight to keep power to a certain group of people. Like the progress of our nation has threatened the power,
Mm-hmm,
right, and the status of a specific group of people, and therefore they feel the only way to hang on to that power is to roll back. Like we're in another Reconstruction era. Like
mm-hmm,
I see it. I was warning about it in 2020. Like, hey, we're headed towards another Reconstruction era, and they're just going to start rolling back the clock so they can hang on to a power and paint this specific type of narrative that they need to paint to make them seem as if they deserve the power and that they are chosen.
mm-hmm.
And
And the
that's what
same
we
thing
see
is
in this
happening
book.
in redactions. That's the same
Hmm.
thing. Like literally, the way this book is written is like that, right? Not
Yeah.
even in the narrative, but like in its construction. Like you'll see people kind of go back and change history a little bit. Hey, it happened like this, and I need to teach it to you like this, right? Like don't say it like that. Say it like this. This is the story we're going with, so that they can kind of
Mhm.
input these ideas of like, yes, I'm supposed to be here. This is how it's supposed to be. God said it that way, and so
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. And then the crazy thing, as we get further deep off into the story, we're gonna realize, like, for those that do believe that this is literal, right, and that this is, history of Jesus's family, this also further debunks the exodus narrative,
mm-hmm,
you know.
mm-hmm,
um and we'll get off into the timeline, the chronological problems with this story, Joseph's story, and them being in Egypt, and then like here you are basing your life right off of these stories, and they're fiction, they're myths,
yeah,
added for some theological purpose, but hopefully the data, right, or the questions, let me not even say data, the questions that we bring up will get a person to thinking and saying, how could this person be the lineage that started the Davidic line, or Jesus, if this, because
if
this is
this is true, right,
impossible, right?
right.
Yeah. um okay, so let's see, what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, um and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he feared that he would too for he feared that he too would die like his brothers." So Tamar went to live in her father's house. In course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. Now let's look at this right quick. In course of time.
Hmm.
So this is happening after Joseph is sold into slavery.
Hmm.
Before Joseph um is risen up in status in Potiphar's house,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Do you know I did the calculations on that, and you know how many years that is?
I don't know. How were you doing the calculation? Let me ask.
So by the time, so Joseph, Jacob went to Egypt when he was 130. Joseph was 17 when he was sold into slavery. Judah was born. He was the fourth born in line, so he was about 7 years older than Joseph. So that would make him like 20.
Oh, if
Yeah,
he, yeah.
when he so like it's a 13-year time span. So all of this, when it says in the course of time,
Okay.
it's from the time that Joseph was sold into slavery, and Judah is all of this is happening with Judah in verse 39. It's
Okay.
13 years.
Okay.
In 13 years, the reader is to expect, right, that Judah went to Canaan, married a Canaanite woman, had these three kids. The sons got old enough to die and not have kids. Shelah here ends up growing up in time, and then Tamar, and like all of this, and then the grandkids and all this is within 13 years.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
You
just
get what I'm
not.
saying?
Yeah, that's just
Like
not how time work. Yeah.
it does not make sense. And then like I calculate, I went to Genesis 46 and 47 to see, I wanted to see if Judah's family went to Egypt with him with Jacob, and they did. And then it says that Onan and were already dead when he went to Egypt. And I'm like, so it really does expect us to believe that all of this happened in 13 years. That he had all these kids in 13 years, two of them died. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. One of them was old enough to marry somebody.
Yeah, they would have
Yeah.
had to been like 12 or 13 years old to get married and die.
Yeah. And to know about not pulling out.
Exactly.
It's like to put on 12-year-old. It's like to put on that.
but but the fact that it says in course of time, like yeah, 13 years.
Yeah.
The wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah's time of mourning was over, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers. He that he and his friend Hirah, the Adulamite. When Tamar was told, "Your father in law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she put off her widow's garment, put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. She saw that Shelah was grown up. So the last kid is grown up now.
Okay.
Yet she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Let me ask you a question. What's the difference between the Kadeshra and prostitute? Like, what's the difference between like the cult prostitute and what this text is saying and a regular prostitute?
I always thought that it was depending on if she was like one for the priest or not. That's really the only
Okay.
distinction that I knew of, right? Because the priest had a certain kind of slave, and some of which were sex slaves. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's the difference. So the Hebrew is saying that she was a uh, like a priest prostitute, like a prostitute for the priest.
Yes.
But
That's why the
wrapped
veil.
herself up like that. Okay.
Yeah.
But the way that the English translation or like the King James translation is translating as if she was just a regular like
Well,
a
keep in
different
mind
type of
there
prostitute.
was no priesthood at the time. That's how you know you're dealing with another like anachronism. Like the priesthood
Okay.
didn't exist.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's true. Okay. Okay. So that's anachronistic as
Mhm.
well. And so him going to a prostitute. Well, I don't think I've read that part yet, have I? Um,
But she literally she just dressed up as a prostitute to go out there, so he
okay.
hadn't met her yet.
Okay. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come into you." For
And
he did not know that she was his daughter in law. So he is looking, he went out looking for a prostitute.
yes, yes, don't hide that, divide that.
Okay, so this presents at this moment, right?
Mm.
Is Judah being immoral?
No, not
So
not
okay,
in
it's
that moment.
okay. And so it was okay for them to have sex with prostitutes.
Yes,
Okay. And so when he apologizes later on, well, okay, hold on. That this is what's confusing me a little bit, but let's get to that part first, and then
okay,
I'll bring it. Okay, let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Only if you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went in to her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to recover the pledge from the woman, he could not find her. She asked the townspeople, "Where is the prostitute who was at Enaim by the wayside?" But they said, "No prostitute has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." Moreover, the townspeople said, "No prostitute has been here." Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own. Otherwise, we will be laughed at. You see, I sent this kid and you cannot find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter in law Tamar has prostituted herself. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of prostitution." And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." So here is like the prostitution is like a bad thing.
yes, only because of the that was a daughter-in-law. But
Okay.
like, you know, if this had just been either a cult prostitute or a foreigner's prostitute or things like that, then it wouldn't have been seen that way. This was because it was a she was technically betrothed to his youngest son, right?
But Judah never gave her to her, right? Like so Judah kept that from her, like
True,
right?
but he was. That's why I said technically, right?
Okay.
Keep in mind, she recognized, okay, he's old enough for me to marry. He hasn't given him to me yet, right? Because he was promised. So there was a betrothal there. And you'll run into the betrothal laws a little later on, blah 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 blah. But that's why she's being burned.
Okay. Okay. And Judah didn't follow through. He didn't keep his word because of what? Like was he scared that she was going to kill him with her punana?
Maybe yeah, because he said peradventure. I think in the King James it says, "Lest peradventure he should die as well." You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So I think he will. I mean, he lost two boys to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be a little
he,
worried
he
too.
was He was scared. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, all right. After she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law. "It was the owner of these who made me pregnant." And she said, "Take note, please, whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more in the right than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and oh, excuse me, and he did not lie with her again. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on his hand a crimson thread, saying, "This one came out first." But just then he drew back his hand, and out came his brother. And she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother came out with the crimson thread on his hand, and he was named Sarah. So this mimics Jacob and Esau, of
Jacob
course.
Esau. Yep.
Um, and Perez is the one that ties to Davidic line, right?
It is it Perez? Wait.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
Perez,
It is. Yeah.
and that's like the I guess I'm like, I don't understand like what I feel like this is, like you said, a later addition for them to try to push to make Judah seem like they're more important than they were not.
Hmm.
Um, and then like when in the story, remember in the story where they were planning to kill Joseph and send him into slavery, and at first Reuben was the one that was uh trying to keep them from killing him,
Yep.
and then it's like, and then Judah was like, let's sell him, not kill him.
Yep.
And it kind of makes it look like Judah was the savior of Joseph because that was God's plan.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like all of that is just tied to trying to make Judah uh
Have some sense of importance.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So here come, this is Perez that pops out. He's technically the oldest. No, 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 that's Sarah is the oldest. Perez is the one that jumps out first.
Mhm.
The breakout one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's an interesting story. Also, like Tamar is like she's doing things that women normally wouldn't do at this point in time because they didn't have like body autonomy.
Right.
She seems to be taking matters into her own hands, kind of like what Rebecca did.
Hmm.
And to me, it kind of says it proves to me that when people say, "Oh, it was divine intervention," it's actually humans that manipulate shit uh to make shit go the way that they feel like it should go. Because like she knew that if she didn't, you know, have a child, that she wouldn't be taken care of, and she that the lineage wouldn't continue, right? And so
Hmm.
it's like, oh, Tamar is righteous, right? Because she made sure that the lineage would continue and leading on to the Judah's best king, David.
Yeah.
And that's why she was
And
righteous.
she was she was more righteous than him because keep in mind you're trying to establish two things. You're trying to establish this uh, leverage, uh, the leverage marriage thing, right?
Is it called leverage?
Yeah,
Okay,
leverage.
I said
That's
legal rights.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Leverage.
I'm like, I kept going. No, I don't think that's what you. The leverage. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you're trying to establish this leverage marriage thing. And so
Mhm.
she stuck to the leverage marriage thing, right? Like this is how this is supposed to go, and you have done me a you've done me wrong in doing the leverage marriage, and so somebody's got to give me this kid. Guess it's gonna have to be you. But at the same time, he is now later on in the law. Keep okay. I could approach my brother's wife if my brother was dead, but my a father-in-law can't sleep with his daughter-in-law,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Um,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So
why did he get like that was a sexual immorality law too,
yes,
right?
yes.
But there are levirate laws in the ancient Near East where the father-in-law would step up, and that was in Mesopotamia. So
Yeah,
like it seems like to me this has a Mesopotamian feel to it as well, like it's being written from their time when they're in Babylon, right? And it has some Babylonian influence
yeah. And I think they're
in it.
trying to enforce the fact that that's not the way to do it, right? Because I mean, there were some people who did do that. I think they were trying to enforce here that no, no, we don't do that, right? Um, because you're right, leverage laws could be well, leverage literally means older brother, but so that's about a law about your brothers,
Mhm.
but and yes, there was a custom in those well, and sometimes in a lot of those areas, but in Israel they just didn't do that. They didn't put up with that, and so she was more righteous than him because she chose to do at least keep the leverage laws. Like to try to, she would have been able to uphold that law had he given the son. So it's kind of like one of those, and I won't call it entrapments, but like catch 22s, right? If he had done what he was supposed to do, she wouldn't have had to do what she did. Thus, she is more righteous than him.
Kind of like what Rahab did.
Yes.
Yeah. And the women in the line of Jesus got their righteousness through manipulation. Ruth
All of them did.
manipulated Boaz,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's why I said like I don't see like the God in this book getting to David didn't do anything by like everything he did included manipulation and deception. If this was his plan, if
Hmm.
if humans are not involved, like if he's so holy. right? If he's all
Mm-hmm.
powerful, why does he need to use deception as his key strategy, right? For getting humans to do what, like, we're supposed to just obey this God today, and he had to use
Mm-hmm.
deception back then in order for his will to
To
come
enact.
about. It just
Yep.
does not make sense.
Nope, it doesn't. It doesn't. Right. And then you go, oh no, God can do that because no, I don't even want to go down that road. Yeah.
That's what they do. But that,
Yeah.
like, and now when I was studying, it was saying like one of the biblical critics, uh, critical talking points for this is how people are willing to justify Judah's immoral behavior for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of a divine plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people are also willing to justify the God's immoral strategies and for the sake of a divine plan. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
like when we're talking to believers, like going back to the Abraham and Abimelech, they will justify, they will say literally that it's Abimelech's fault that
Mm-hmm.
that he made Abraham scared and that he was about to commit adultery, and that Abimelech should have known better, or like they will not blame Abraham, and
Mm-hmm.
they won't blame the God, like they, and we see the same thing here. I guarantee you they will say that Judah wasn't wrong.
Of course. Um, but it's one of those things that once you kind of pick a character in a story that you're gonna get behind, you build a whole theology around it, and then sometimes it's difficult to see the story, for the pieces that it is. You know,
Yeah, but
um,
but
yeah.
but just talking about the action, right? Like we know what deception is,
We
right?
don't. Who knows what deception is?
The definition of deception.
You think we use definitions over here?
I mean, I think people know, like if somebody, if you're dating somebody, and
Oh yeah, that's in date. We talking about the Bible.
no, I'm just talking about period. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about when we're having a conversation with a believer, right? And we ask them, is what a did he lie, right, or
Mm-hmm.
did he deceive? They are willingly choosing to not apply what they know deception and lying is to this because
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I was asking: Are we? Who uses the definition of deception? Right? Like it's not that we don't. Outside of this, yeah, of course we know the deception is bad.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
would say. Like we as adults, as we know, regardless if we believe in a God or not, we know what deception is and we know what it feels like.
right.
But what's interesting to me is that because of a belief in a God, or because of a belief in a people, right, that these people are holy and they were chosen and they were needed to get to their Jesus, they're willing to excuse or justify, you know, deception.
Mm-hmm.
Why at the same time saying the devil was a deceiver, they will justify the deceptive tactics of these the holy people or their God, right, in
Mm-hmm.
order to get to their Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And that's yeah, you kind of piecemeal it together. Again, that's how these redactions are written anyway, right? It's like I have a rhetorical goal. I'm just gonna put this with this, and it doesn't have to necessarily be smooth or congruent or any of that. It's just I'm gonna put this with this because I have a rhetorical goal, right? And that same thing happens time and time and time and time again. You see it in the story, you see it in the construction of the Bible, you see it in our politics, you see it in the way we develop doctrine now. You start with the conclusion, and then you kind of just piece it back together.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to see, and I think that's the thing that like irritates my living soul, like because it's why we see what's happening in the world today. Like, did you see the law of Mississippi
Mm-mm. Nope.
where the immigrants that are captured, like they're starting a immigrant bounty hunter program,
Okay.
and kind of like the Fugitive Slave Act, $1,000 per immigrant,
Wow.
um, and any immigrant that is captured, if they are not deported within 24 hours, will become a lifetime imprisonment,
Mm.
which means that they will be lifetime.
Slaves.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so when we talk to people about Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, and that clause in there that says you can also make slaves out of people who are,
Fun.
yep, and
Yep.
that live in your land
Mm-hmm.
and or have been born in your land. And that's what we see, this. moving towards. And when
Mm.
people are afraid to say, "Yep, that was a bad law. God should never like if God was powerful, slavery would never be a thing," or that is man saying that. Like I don't believe that was a God. Like or speaking up against that, we wouldn't be right.
We're gonna be where we are.
We wouldn't be where we are. And
Exactly.
then they have like all of the DEI rollbacks, right? Black
Yep.
History Month canceled. Transgender people can no longer get passports. They have put a hold on uh, existing applications and new ones who are um, uh, you know, requesting a X gender marker on their passports, and so they can no longer get passports. Like this is like it's ridiculous when people are willing to like look at their God and see immoral behavior while calling the life of and of humans that they can see who live innocent. They're innocent. They're you know acting out of integrity. Um, they're willing to demonize them and you know justify any type of harm towards those people for the sake of a belief while excusing the deception and the immoral behavior and the slavery and like it just makes me like because of this like I'm really scared for America going forward because their minds is so wrapped up in this and I don't think from the conversations that we've had they don't see the harm that they're causing with these belief systems.
When this is over, I'm gonna call and tell you a little story. Um, Something that just happened to me literally yesterday. That was actually kind of good, but kind of messed up at the same time. But it's
Okay.
about this. It's about the same basic topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
Now that'll do it for this chapter. We could probably go through it again and do some other layers, but yeah, but that'll do it for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll do it for this. It's been a good hour.
Yeah, this is pretty good. I didn't think that we were going to be able to get to 39. Like once I want to dig a little bit more into Jesus's lineage here and
Okay.
the fact that they were only in there for 13. I mean, not only the fact that
This is a 13-year span right here.
13 years span here, and then they went to Jacob. I mean to Egypt. Um, Joseph rises to power when he's 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when Jacob goes down there, he lives for 17 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he dies at 147 years old. So, like, working backwards and doing the math there, when Judah goes there, he has Perez in Sarah
Mm-hmm.
or Zerah, and Onan and are already dead. This means that Perez became a father around 12 or 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the patriarch of Jesus's line. So he would be what Jesus's great 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 grandfather
It's probably
or
more
great.
than that, I think, but somewhere around there. I mean, like, there's a few greats back, because keep in mind, I think it's like 14 generations back to David, then like another 14 or 13 back to these guys. So he's way back in the greats.
And so he would have been like maybe 2 years old when they went to Egypt. So maybe 10, 12, or 12, 13 when he became a father.
What is he, Kodak Black?
But
What is
that's
he, NBA young boy? What is he?
right. And then like just thinking about that, doing that math, it made me think about how all of these stories deal with kids. Like
Mm,
literally, we are living our lives based off of what
some
kids
kids.
saw back then.
Yep. And again, like I said it all the time about when you get over into like the promised land, this is a group of kids that's 19 and younger trying to put together a culture, right? Because nobody made it into the promised land that was over 20, right? So this
Yeah,
this is a group of kids trying to like build a nation.
I feel like this is just. I don't want to say that. I don't know. It just feels like a. Let me not. Let me not. I'll tell you when you call me. All
Okay.
right. Thank you. Thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Make sure you hit the share button. If you ain't subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Let other people know that we are talking about the 69 God. The 69 God Tamar today with her killer PUSSY. We'll see y'all next Sunday. Bash, you got anything you want to say?
Hey man, I appreciate y'all for sharing and liking my videos. I just want to say thank y'all again for that. It is doing really, really well. When I call you, it's gonna be about 10 minutes because I got to hop in the shower. But when I call you, I'm gonna tell you something about all this that's going on.
Okay. Yay. And congratulations to you again. I'll see y'all later on tonight on live. Have a good one, y'all.
Hey, y'all be good.
Bye.